So in the last lecture, I was just ending it by talking about the question of addressing, why this imbalance that I discussed at the beginning, where European powers are basically fighting each other for more dominance over the rest of the world, extracting resources unevenly to the advantage of these various European powers at the expense of the other world. Why does the world work this way then? And how come it wasn't the other way around? How come, for instance, it wasn't China colonizing the British Isles, or Africa colonizing France? And to be honest, I think that it's fair to say that we're not going to really be able to resolve this. I would like to have a very easy, straightforward answer, something that comes just kind of screaming out. And I just kind of want you to realize that there continues to be a debate about this. In the past, it was easily resolved by basically the concept of God and racism, meaning, that not just that might makes right, but when you have the advantage, to assume that you have it because you really are better than somebody else. And this is not really different, even the way many people think competitively when there is the idea of competition, right? In business, you say, "Oh, I'm better than this other business. That's why they failed." There could be some truth to that, but now you find it's not so easy to always understand. Why did the Mongols and Turkic people come out of Central Asia when they did, and how is it that they just plowed through out of nowhere, kind of thing? How did Christianity go from being an obscure, persecuted religion in Rome to being the only really tolerated religion in Rome, next to Jews, sort of? And I can go on and on about various examples in these big questions. I mean, Islam takes off with lightning speed when it emerges out of an obscure land of Arabia, and conquers two great empires in less than a century or more. But I'm talking mainly about Persia and the Eastern Roman Empire, or at least chunks of the Eastern Roman Empire, should I say, at that time. And so, again, for some people, it's kind of the idea of manifest destiny. God or providence is on the side of one to explain. We just don't have the answer. So, enough of that, and let me get down more into the history now. So previously we were talking about Britain, right? And Britain ends up having a lot of economic advantages in areas such as Southeast Asia. We're going to learn more about, especially India is going to be extremely important, considered the jewel, the crown jewel of the British Empire. And France was one of the competitors for this. And so again, the theme that we get kind of weaved into this chapter is that European powers are competing with each other, sometimes violently, others time maybe just through kind of various diplomatic ways, or by all sorts of means. They're trying to take advantage of each other to take advantage of others. Okay, so we have the Caribbean islands, and we're going to have parts of Canada and North America, which we obviously, living in the United States, we have this awareness. I mean, we look at Louisiana, and and then for Canadians up in Quebec, the French legacy is still strong. Okay, but they just didn't quite have the uh, ability to achieve the same success that the British did. Now, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because why does Haiti speak French, or have a language based on French in any way? So the Creole. You have the French legacy here, and we're living in an area where really France, Britain, and Spain were competing for control, and to another degree, we'll talk about this more later with Brazil, Portugal. Okay, and so in this chapter, we're kind of all sitting on top of this legacy right here, especially. Okay, for the Dutch, that's not maybe something that we think about so much. Of course, you know, New York used to be the New Netherlands, as you were reading in this chapter. And the Dutch did a lot with trade. They're going to be really, their legacy is going to be felt in Africa and Asia. I mean, if you saw the picture here, you have the Dutch factory of Batavia in Indonesia, which is later going to become Jakarta. I mean, just think about this. I mean, Indonesia is the largest Islamic country in the world demographically. And the Dutch are going to basically be in control and dominate Indonesia. Okay? You're going to have the legacy of the Dutch in Africa. And you're going to have the Boers. Okay? Now, I want to talk about that a little bit more. Let me actually back up here. They don't go into much detail here, but when I was younger, there was still officially apartheid in South Africa. And there was a lot of discussions about that. Now, not so much. Many of you know of Nelson Mandela. We know about racial segregation in the United States, but we had since I think around 1948 until my lifetime in the modern 20th century, an official regime that separated, made things apart. That's what apartheid meant in South Africa, and had extreme racism built in officially into their democratic structure. Okay, where it was a racial supremacy combined with a democracy, just like we did with slavery to a certain extent. But their legacy of the Afrikaners, as they became known, was complex, and the British fought with them. The Boers, it was also known as the Boer Wars. Those were the Dutch settlers that created agriculture that employed slave labor in South Africa, and they ended up actually fighting the British, and the British ended up being very brutal to the Dutch, and in turn later, of course, the Dutch were also going to be brutal to the Africans. They kind of saw themselves as many of these farmers as going to the land of Canaan in the Bible. And if you know the story of the land of Canaan, there are basically people who do religious practices that God hates, and he calls this the promised land, and promises the Jews that are on God's side that this land flowing with milk and honey should be theirs, and they should kill off the inhabitants and make it into the land of Israel. That is actually the story of the book of Joshua, who I'm named after. And in many cases, the Dutch settlers saw themselves kind of as the new Israel of God's chosen people, having a right to conquer the black heathens and take over their land and turn it and transform it into land flowing of milk and honey. It was that kind of manifest destiny idea there that still kind of deals with issues within modern politics in South Africa. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. Then we have a discussion of the Spanish Empire. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cover this next in lecture number 4.